Finding Alara, a safe space where authors, artists and creatives share their world-building style and mindfulness tactics. Brought to you by Bushland Castle Productions, a micro-publisher with an author support platform that nurtures creative growth and storytelling excellence. Season 3, Episode 4, Part 1 of my interview with Lexy Delorme. This is the mindfulness episode, so if you're new to the show, then the format is introductions, where I generally stumble over the bio, and then we start our conversation. There are general questions that I ask every time. After a bit, we talk about the treasure chest, we follow that by fast fire questions, and then we have Buffy night. A quick update from the team at Bushland Castle Productions. The Bushland Scrolls competition is now live, which includes the speculative fiction Catalyst Scroll and memoir creative non-fiction Heritage Scroll. Make sure you check out the show notes for more information. I am beyond excited to see how this competition goes. Please note it is for creatives from Australia and New Zealand that are over 16 years old. I will share more over the next few episodes. During this conversation, we do talk about mature content. I don't think there is anything particularly offensive that stands out, but I did want to mention that we do talk about mature matters. I really hope you have a blast listening to my interview with Lexy. I really enjoyed the conversation. Delorme is an award-winning author of the Limerence series, a genre-defying collection of emotionally charged novels which include Kaio, Bright Midnights, Fanning Fireflies and Ghosting Academy. Her book Kaio won a finalist spot in the International Book Awards for cross-genre fiction. Bright Midnights was named a Publishers Weekly Book Life Editor Choices pick and was a finalist Golden Wizard Award competition in 2024. Fanning Fireflies won first place for paranormal fiction in the Firebird Awards. With a background as a lawyer, pop musician and science writer, Lexy brings intellectual depth and lyrical prose to every story she tells. Lexy is a wanderer and storyteller at heart. Raised as a military brat by United States Navy captain, she has lived on 3 continents across 4 countries, 9 states and 21 cities. Now based in Paris, she lives with her charming French husband and 2 very cool sons. Lexy is an active member of the British Fantasy Society, the Science Fiction Writers Association, Romance Writers of America, the Horror Writers Association, IBPA, and Ally. That's just like a whole list of your amazing achievements that you have going on there.
Yeah, it kind of makes me cringe. But whenever people read about you, you're like, yeah.
One thing that popped up for me was the popstar bit.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Why wouldn't you want to be a pop star forever?
Because oddly, you don't make money. Not unless you're like huge. But also, it was an interesting time for me. So I had started school, when I went into school, university, I started as an acting major. Then I ended up getting this environmental illness where I was like exhausted and couldn't move and stuff. So I kind of moved into music, just writing music. So formed a band. I tend to go full on in whatever I'm doing. And we ended up getting quite a bit of regional play in the South in the US. So we were kind of part of this, they called it Tobacco Road. It was like this genre of music that was a mix of different things. They called us cerebral jangly pop, I think was what they said at the time. But I realized that we opened for some people, we toured, but I realized I went to see our A&R guy at the record company and he sat me down and said, listen, I need you to understand something. He was like, you're not for this. And I was like, what? And he was like, you hate playing live. You don't like partying. You basically want to sit in the studio and do stuff. I can set you up with someone to write music. It's just not really going to go anywhere. And with your particular band, you're not going to go anywhere. I can put you with another band or I can, have you do it yourself. And I realized at that moment, he was completely right. I loved composing the music. I loved the writing piece of it. So the writing piece of it was what really made me happy. And I just wasn't one of those people who wanted to be up in front of a bunch of people performing all the time and then afterwards talking to them about the performance and having them analyze what that wasn't who I was. So he said, why don't you're smart, go be a lawyer. And so I did. I came out, went to law school, and the irony is that guy also left his job and went to become a lawyer, and he's now a lawyer in New York doing entertainment law, who I still interact with occasionally. But we did have a video on MTV in the middle of the night one night, about 5 people watched, I think. But it was an interesting thing to do, and it was a great thing to do in my early 20s. Right. But aging through that, or just the stuff I wrote, was not going to be something that was ever going to be hugely popular en masse. So I was happy to leave when I left.
Lessons learned.
Absolutely.
And the Golden Wizard Award. That sounds awesome. What was that for?
So there's kind of 2 variations on the Golden Wizard Award. It is something that they have in the UK. The only one of my books I put it for is Bright Midnights, the second book, because that one is classified as a YA. So the Golden Wizard Awards are for YA and below. And it has 2 things. They have one where it's basically like a standard of approval, right? So they read your book, they decide if it's good enough, and they give you kind of a stamp as a standard of approval. The second one is the actual competition, which I was in. They put my book in the competition. So I was a finalist or semi-finalist for 1 year. So those are 2 kind of different things. The other one that I won just this year is I was a finalist for the International Book Awards for cross-genre fiction for the first book, Kaio.
That's fantastic. It's good that you're putting yourself out there and really building your brand and having people get to know you.
I think I really enjoy talking to the people who are actually reading the books, right? I like to hear what they saw in it, because I have things I'm trying to say. I have themes I'm trying to explore. And if I'm talking directly with them, I hear these things. I think it's much nicer to interact with people.
On a one-on-one basis, as opposed to standing on a
one-on-one basis.
So
yeah, exactly.
If someone was to enter your world, which book should they start with?
That's actually a really good and interesting question. So the first 3 books of this series, so that's Kaio, Bright Midnights, and Fanning Fireflies, I wrote them to be able to, you could read them in any order. So the first 3 books are standalone and can be read in any order. Some of the characters go over into each other's novels in the first 3 books, but they're designed that way. So you come in via what your interest level is, because it's cross-genre. The first 3 books all have a bit of paranormal, all have a bit of romance. But they also have a subgenre, which is why I say I write cross-genre. So Kaio is a paranormal romance, but also a legal thriller.
Ooh.
Bright Midnights, the second one, is a paranormal romance, but also a metaphysical coming of age set in a U.S. high school. And the third one, Fanning Fireflies, is a paranormal romance, but also a historical mystery set in 1944, World War II.
You're touching all the bases there. Wow.
So all of those characters and plot lines come together in the fourth book, which is called Ghosting Academy, which is a supernatural spy thriller. And yes, this actually works. It sounds a bit crazy, but it actually works. There will be 4 more books in the series, and the 5th book, which is called Limerence, is coming out in October, in the 6th of October. So, and that one is a psychological thriller with paranormal.
So 6th of October 2025, yeah?
Yep.
So very soon.
Very soon.
Fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit about how you decided to be a novelist? We know how you went from pop star to lawyer. How did you go from lawyer to creative artist?
So that's definitely a path. I've always written. First off, I've always written. Writing has been the one thing that's been fundamental for me. Just the form in which the writing takes has changed. So when I was a teenager, I wrote horrible poetry. You know how you do. You know, you look back at it now. When my kids feel bad about the stuff they write, I'm like, look at this poem I wrote when I was 13, right? I was trying to be Joni Mitchell, right? And you're really awful. And then I did the band stuff. I did music. And I did acting, which is a lot of reading and analysis of stuff. And then becoming a lawyer, you write all the time. As a lawyer, my undergrad was actually in science. So I had to write scientific papers. And then as a lawyer, you have to write legal papers. You're always writing briefs to the Supreme Court for prisoners who want to get out. From that point, I went to actually work at 23andMe, which is a genetic startup company in the US. And I was one of the first people working there. And my husband and I were both in California. But he got this offer to do international management as a job. And I was like, that will afford us things we could never give our children, just as him and me. Even with our combined salaries, the companies pay for everything mostly when you're an expat. And we knew we would be able to give the children schooling and a world experience they wouldn't have been able to get. So I said, okay, fine, we'll go. I'll figure out what to do with myself. So I'm not taking the bar everywhere I move. That's just masochistic, and I'm not that masochistic. Actually, I'm not masochistic at all. And so I decided I would start travel writing. So I started writing about traveling with kids. I started with Disney because I went to Disneyland Paris and I hated it. I hated every moment of it. And I thought, people love this. Let me figure out why. So I started writing travel articles for Bonjour Paris in Paris about the going to Disney and the things that I found out. Eventually put a travel book out. And so then I started travel writing. So I travel I talked about the things I did with the kids and how to do it cheaper and that kind of stuff. And I wrote for magazines in Paris, and then when we went to Hong Kong, I worked for Playtimes in Hong Kong. And when we moved to London, I said, I want to actually take some time and try and write a novel, because I've had characters in my head most of my life. I remember exactly where I was. I was at the Angus Steakhouse with my husband. And I said, I think I'm going to try to write a book. And he looked at me and said, you're not going to do that. And I was like,
challenge accepted.
Excuse me. It was exactly it. I was like, oh no, you wait, you're going to eat those words. So, 8 books later, actually 9 books later, he's like, yeah, I know. But that's kind of how I started. And the first thing I wrote, everyone says, oh, it's really bright of you to have done a series and have it all mapped out. And for full transparency, it did not start that way. The first thing that I wrote was a 1,000,000-word book. And I was like, okay, no one's reading this right at the end. Like, this is just no. And so I thought, all right, there's more that I want. And that just got me through the second book of the series, right? So I was like, okay, there's a lot more to this, and I need to give myself time to craft this arc for these different characters, which is really long. And so that's what I did. I started writing it, and then we moved to Paris, and I finished writing the series while in Paris. It took me 5 years to build the world, really to go into the depth of it and figure things out, kind of write short stories in it and stuff. But once I had the world really crafted, it's easy to write in.
Yeah, it's amazing when you have that solid world building foundation. Well, this interview is focusing on mindfulness. We'll get back to the world building, but do you have any mindful practices that you do to get into your writing zone and activate your creative sensitivities?
So I have always meditated. My father actually taught me that when I was 12. I actually had a guru guy do this. So I learned how to do transcendental meditation. So that's actually when I need to pull back and have those moments, that's what I do. But in terms of like getting my creative juices flowing, boredom is the thing to do for me. I have to be able to get bored, because that's when your brain starts to entertain itself. It starts like creating things to entertain you. So technology is not my friend. So when I start doing that, I put all phones aside, all TV, anything. The most I allow myself to do is cook. And I find cooking is a really good place for me to start being creative mentally.
Because your body's busy, but your brain's just, yeah.
Exactly. Your brain's bored.
I've started cycling.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so we've got this little loop that we like to ride. So while I'm cycling, I've just noticed there's just something magical about it that just puts my brain in that right headspace.
So how do you document that? So if you get an idea and you're cycling, how do you document it?
Oh, I'm not that fit, so I'm not cycling for very long. I just have to remember.
I like the truth. Yeah. Yeah.
So other than the meditation, what other mindfulness practices do you practice?
So I don't know if you would call it exactly mindfulness, but and it kind of comes from meditation. I visualize a lot. Before I do something, I see it in my head and take it all through the different ways of being. I think maybe it comes from learning meditation young, but there is this way that my brain works where if I close my eyes and if I get bored and if I kind of focus, I start seeing the scenes that I'm writing playing out like a movie in my head. And I can watch this movie, and I don't know how my brain's actually doing this, right? I can't make it do it, right? It just starts doing it. And it will come out as a very visual thing. What's really fascinating is when I dream, and I have movie dreams. So I actually dream an entire movie. My brain creates music. There's a soundtrack. There is actually a film score. I'm not capable of writing this down because I can't write music. So I get up in the morning and it's been there. And I'm like, I have no way to notate this. And my kids they do music. But I think there's another thing that I do. So mind you, my father was very into mindfulness. He was very into psychology. He was very into all the practices that help calm your mind. He was actually a chaplain in the Navy. And then he went on to be a psychologist for R.J. Reynolds Industries. And he was always on that path to try to, it's basically like your brain is this really fast horse and you have to train it, right, to get it to not go everywhere. I also have ADHD, so there's that. But most of the things that I have done have gone from what he taught me or from very much introspection of myself. Because what works for me won't work for other people. And what works for other people may not work for me. My dad was big on this idea that there's an answer, right? You can do this one thing and there will be an answer. It is my experience that there isn't, not at least not as a group. There is for individuals.
Everyone has a different mindset, the way they look into things, for sure. So with your kids and your husband and traveling a lot, it sounds like you'll get really, really busy. So what do you do to beat the overwhelm and handle that
So I'm going to tell you something that as a mom you're going to understand. The bathroom is your friend. Like, you know, it's like, sorry guys, got to use the bathroom. This is the 12th time in an hour. I know, but gotta go. And when they're young, even that isn't respite. They'll walk in anyway. When my kids were younger, my bathtub was like family conference area. I get in the tub and it's like the trigger for every single person in the family to come in and start talking to me about whatever it is they want to talk about. My husband still does it. You know, it's like, comes in and goes, honey, I was just thinking about this business thing I was doing. And I'm thinking, I've got shampoo, you know, I can't really see because it's dripping in my eyes. Why is this the moment? But yeah, so it's like you have to create those spaces and say, and I have to tell you something, I don't know if I share it, but it's funny. You have to create those spaces where you know that you're going to get time alone, right? And so my husband and I have developed this thing we do where if we want time just with us to sit and talk about something because the kids are older, we'll lean out the door and go, kids, mom and dad are having sex now. And they're running for other rooms, putting headphones on. And you completely have time to yourself, right?
How long does that get you?
About an hour.
Nice. They're very optimistic about you guys. This is good.
They're very optimistic, exactly. And it's still effective. It was most effective when they were like 15 to 18, right? That was they've just kind of learned about it and the horror of it for them.
Let's go to safer topics, shall we? So do you have any tips for setting up good writing habits?
Yeah. So one of the things that somebody told me really early, and I think it's one of the things that really impacted me positively, was another writer I knew said, the part of your brain that edits is different from the part of your brain that writes. So when you get up in the morning, you should write every day. And when you get up in the morning and write, tell yourself you're going to write crap because it frees you. So you get up and you just write. You don't edit yourself. You don't think about, is this working? You just write. And once you're in the head of writing and you put stuff down, then you can go back later and massage it. But there's nothing like the editor head to keep you from writing anything because you spend like 25 minutes on one paragraph, which won't get you anywhere. That's how I find that I write faster and I actually get better product. I also write really well if I wake up in the middle of the night because there's nothing in my way. My personality is not in my way. And there's nothing I hate more than when I read myself or somebody else where you're reading the story and you're thinking too much about their writing style, or you're thinking about where they're putting too much of, look how nice it sounds, look at my lovely prose. It ends up being distracting from the actual story.
Pulls you out of the story.
Yeah. So for me, that's why the middle of the night stuff usually works really well because I'm completely out of my own head.
Have you tried dictating your stories?
I have, yeah. I do that with my iPhone, just as I'm wandering around the city. That's another time actually wandering around helps me to write. Not because I'm seeing the sights or anything as glorious as that. It's just more that I'm not in my own head. My body's doing something like cooking, so it's distracting. I've been wanting to do an audiobook for a while now, but I just haven't been able to do something that I like yet. So that's on my agenda of things I want to do, but I haven't found a good way to do it, right? And I just hate the sound of my own voice. So that doesn't help.
Well, if you want to narrate it, then yeah, that would be a problem.
I know.
We're going to pause now to have a word from our sponsor. Being a creative can be a lonely path, but it doesn't have to be. Bushland Pages is a free community where creatives gather to support one another. Whatever your passion, fellow creatives will walk the path beside you, sharing ideas and encouraging your every step. We are currently celebrating authentic April alliteration. 5 minutes a day is all it takes to trial a new theme and sharpen your skills. Because at BCP Creative, we believe something fundamental. Creativity deserves to be nurtured. Our drawbridge is down and the portcullis has been raised. Join Bushland Pages today. Visit bushlandcastleproductions.com and step inside the castle. And we're back. So you've got quite a few books out at the moment. What sort of responses have you been getting from your readers?
So I've been really happy with the readers that are reading the book. It's because what I wanted when I thought about being a writer, I wanted to start with a small group of really dedicated people, right? I'd rather do that and then grow that. And that's kind of what's been happening rather than hit something really big at first. I often compare, and I actually do talks on this at Comic-Cons. Writing, whether you realize it or not, you're a startup if you're self-publishing. Even if you're not self-publishing, you're still a startup because you're having to do your marketing. So you have to go through all those steps, those same steps that a startup would do. And I've been in a few startups. I think in the beginning, I had to say for myself, what do I want from this? What is my goal? Do I want to sell a lot of books? Because that's one path. If you're writing to what is currently trending, you're trying to make sales and that's your major focus. That's one path, and you do it differently from I have a world that I want to share, or I have a story that I want to share to people. It gives you a different path and could be a different result. You can end up in the same place, but maybe not. So for me, I always really wanted to have this full story told. The feedback that I get from this, because it's cross-genre, thing is that is most said to me is, I've never read anything like this. In a positive way, not in that, oh my God, I've never read anything like this. No, it's said in a positive way because it is cross-genre and it does blend things across different ideas, because I don't think life is a genre. At any moment in your life, you could be in a romance, and 2 years later, you could be in a horror. So I don't see life as being contained in these little genres. I know why they do it. I know why it's easier to sell that way. But that's not something that I really want to write. And for me, it was about what I want to write rather than people seeing me as a writer per se.
So you've got a lot of positive reviews then, not a lot of those 1 stars?
Yeah.
That's good.
But, to be honest with you, I'm happier to get the 1 star than like the 3 star. Because you're like, why would you even review something that you think is meh? Right? I want people to have a strong reaction to my stories, and they do. I will say every one of my book has trigger warnings, and for a reason. So Fanny Fireflies, the 3rd book, it's set in World War II in the South in the U.S., and it's a story about an African-American soldier who gets involved with a poor white woman. So all that stuff is there in it. And I'm not going to pull punches on things. If I'm telling a story, it's because I want to explain something or talk to people about something. And I'm not going to muddy the waters with something to make people more comfortable. So is my writing for everybody? No. Is it for people who like intensity? Yes. All my books. So I think the dark although I don't really write dark romance, the dark romance people like it because they can deal with the kind of more difficult issues, I think.
So if you do get a review or a rejection from one of your, well, maybe when you're being edited or when you're reading the reviews that have come in, what are your strategies to deal with that and process it healthily?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first off, I have been seared by fire. I have gone through fire on that kind of thing, on being rejected or having negative feedback. First, I went to law school, which is nothing but telling you you're stupid for 3 years. And you learn to deal with that. It's really like being thrown into basic training. In my law school, we went to the law school, which was one of the kinder, gentler law schools. But a guy who was the 3rd year when we were the 1st year went crazy, went down the street and shot a bunch of people because of the stress.
Oof.
Yeah. And we knew it. We were all going, is it better to sit in the front of the class or the back of the class when loses his mind? So, you have that. You get that period of they really kind of rip you down and tell you that you're an idiot and that you're awful. And you create these kind of a new persona to deal with that. So you create your lawyer persona, this person that you are as a lawyer. And then later I went through a really nasty divorce. And that did the rest of it. Any negative thing you could possibly think about me or say about me has been said. And a bunch of them have been made up. So there was that. But I think when you are looking at reviews, when people are saying stuff back to you, you have to have a persona in place that deals with that well. Like you have an editor mode and you have the writer mode. Your writer mode should not be reading your reviews. That should be your editor mode or your public-facing person, because then you process that better. So the one that's really difficult to deal with, I found, is when you have someone close to you or someone in your family or someone you have to deal with a lot who doesn't like your book, because it's very difficult to remove that from who you are. When you write, you're putting yourself out there. This is the way your brain works. Even if the story is not you, it's showing how your brain works. You're putting how your brain works out for people to see. And for someone close to you to say, I don't like that, there's going to be a part of you that goes, you don't like me, right? So when it's someone close to you, and that was actually how I discovered that one of my in-laws didn't like me at all as a person. It came to fruition later, like in a very odd.
Is that your new in-laws or your old in-laws?
This is my new in-laws. My old in-laws, God bless them. They're having to deal with a lot of stuff. But yeah, my ex had issues. If you leave that part of you open, if you leave that inside pathway open and you're reading reviews, you're going to get super defensive. There's no way not to. So the persona that I developed, that I put on when I'm reading reviews and such, is the part of me, almost the analytical part of me, that says when a person writes a review about your book, they're telling you as much about them as they're saying about you. So it's interesting to view it as, how do you look at this review? How do you look at what this person's like? Because it takes it out of the judgment thing, right? It puts it into more of a analysis mode.
I think something that I've been told that's really stuck home is you write from the scar, not the wound.
Yeah.
So you can't actually write anything that has actually any relation to your life, your real life, unless you're writing from the scar. Because if it's the open wound, you're just going to make it worse. Yeah. And you're not going to actually get it out there clearly and concisely anyway.
No, that's true. That's really true. I mean, I find it, when I'm writing, I write a lot about stuff that happened in my childhood and in high school and stuff, because those are scars that I look at. The open wounds are, I think you just have to deal with them when it's happening, right?
Yeah.
Writing about it's just going to basically stick your finger in it.
So wait a couple of years before you write about those.
Yeah. Exactly.
So because you started with a small idea that ended up being an 8-book series, obviously that's such a huge project. How did you stay motivated, keep yourself going all the way through?
My kids. So we've made this a family project. My now 16-year-old loves stories, loves movies, loves writing. I bought this book called Save the Cat. At some point, it was a book about writing. When he was, I think, 8. The book never came, or I thought the book never came. I found out years later he took it and read it. My second book, Bright Midnights, which is the one that got the editor's choice, it got rated really highly. And it got, I'm saying this for a reason, I'm going to mom brag here. It had, for editing, they gave it an A-. He edited that book, the dev edit that book, when he was 12.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So he's been involved. He's been my developmental editor from the beginning. My family has been like, read me a chapter. So at the end of weeks, I told them when they were younger that I will read a chapter at the end of the week. And if I did not have a chapter at the end of the week, I was in big trouble. So I had them really acting as my motivation. I didn't have to do it myself. And once the series got far enough, I wanted to write for myself more. It was easier to motivate myself because I wanted to be with these characters. But in the beginning, they really helped. My oldest son, all the blurbs on my books, he wrote. So they did for Bright Midnights. My youngest, who actually wants to do film, he decided he wanted to do a book trailer of the book. So he location scouted, this is when he was 14. He location scouted, he hired actors, he wrote a script out of one of the scenes that I wrote. He filmed it, he edited on DaVinci. My oldest son wrote the music to it, and they put it out there.
Did you get to see it first?
Yeah, I did, because it was
just
all
checking.
very much, yeah, right. So, no, like they're very collaborative. Like they want to do these things, and they take them, and then we work on it as a family. And that's what I love about indie publishing. Actually, is that it's more fun for me, right? We incorporated ourselves. We get to do this stuff ourselves, but we now have a PR company that we work with. We now have editors that we work with. But we found all that ourselves. We did it ourselves, which was so much more fun for us as a family. It's not just scratching on the door of someone going, please like my book. It gives you interactions with people and it gives you fun things to do. So I didn't have to think about fun things to do with the kids because it was already there.
That's amazing. So good that you originally needed that, sort of like a crutch for the motivation, but then you've stepped up. You're owning that direction that you're going on.
Exactly.
So what are your future projects at the moment?
So I just finished writing, literally last week, I finished writing a 9th book. And this is actually a backstory of one of the characters in the series that I've heard people say they wanted to know more about. So that's another great thing of having people come talk to you about your books. You find out the people that they're interested in and then what you should pursue. So I did that and then finished that last week. And I'm giving myself a few weeks to travel and do Comic-Cons. And then I just started putting together a book of short stories.
Fantastic.
It's fun. It's really fun.
So like an anthology?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have to wait and see how they come out.
I've written short stories a lot, but it's a new art form to think about putting them into one thing, right? What's the theme that I'm going to use? I really have been thinking a lot about the theme and how it flows, because even though they're separate, there's definitely a flow and a theme that goes throughout. So that's taken a lot of my thought. And how do I craft a short story in a way that compellingly leads from one to the other? So that's something new for me. It's fun because I haven't done it before. And I'm like, before I've just written short stories just off the cuff. I've never really looked at what's the structure of a short story and what's the best way to utilize it. And so that's a learning curve for me now.
Still growing and learning as you walk along, which is fantastic.
Always.
Yeah. We're going to move on to our fast fire questions. But before we do, I want to talk about your donation into the treasure chest. So the code word is Flint for this treasure chest number 4. And you said that it's pretty much whatever we decide on the email. So yep. What's your favourite book? You can't choose that. It's like choosing a baby.
Oh, don't ask me that question. That's like, that's like choosing a favorite child. So I think maybe to get started for people, Bright Midnights.
Bright Midnights. Okay, so a copy of Bright Midnights for one lucky winner. Can you just give us a quick, elevator pitch for Bright Midnights?
So Bright Midnights is about a girl she's a girl in high school who has this gift/curse of being chemically made in a different way so that people become irrationally attracted to her. And she's had trouble with abuse as a result of it. And she travels in her head at night and she meets someone there, a person who does not have that problem with her. And then that person starts showing up in the bodies of the people around her.
Okay, I'm intrigued. I'll have to get it now and see what happens. Are your books on audio?
Not yet. I need to. I know. I hear this all the time. They're like, do it. I know. What I don't want, it's I don't want to do that automated AI does it for you audio stuff because it sounds terrible.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So
no. There's a big step and it's a financial commitment to do it for sure. Anyway, now the fast fire questions. What colour best describes your personality?
Opal.
Is your main character capable of anti-hero actions?
Most of my characters are capable of anti-hero actions.
What is your favourite fictional holiday destination?
I think ancient China.
Would you ever swap positions with any of your characters?
I might, but only if needed, because my characters have a rough time. I've always said that if my characters were to meet me in person, they would probably kill me.
So if you were to choose a character, which one would you choose then?
Kara.
Is that from Midnight?
Kara, you're introduced to just briefly in Bright Midnights, but the new book, Limerence, is about her story with Dante.
Would your main character save his or her loved one or save the world?
Depends on the character. I actually think most of them would save their loved ones.
The world has survived for thousands of years.
Exactly. It'll sort it out. Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on to our Buffy Night section now. Buffy Night is the one night of the week where I wrestle control of the big telly in the house and steal it for the evening. I meet with a good friend of mine online. I'm totally going to read this again later. And we binge a few episodes of something together. In the Buffy Night section, I talk to my guests about something that has inspired their work. It could be anything from books they've read, movies or TV shows they've watched, or games they've played. So we were talking a bit about... We were talking a bit about this earlier, and you've decided to Buffy Night your Apothecary Diaries.
Yeah. So we actually, as a family, we go through phases where we're binge watching things, right? And we do it. So right now we're watching Apothecary Diaries. And my son, who's in university in Florida, is doing it at the same time. And so we are watching through these series because it bonds us, because we can then talk about it later, or we can, my youngest son is rip out the structure and tell you, like, he's the writing guy. So he'll tell you everything that was wrong and right with the different structures. But Apothecary Diaries is an anime show. It's on Netflix. And it is about this girl in like the Forbidden Palace in China. And she's brought in kind of as a servant, but they find out that she was raised by an apothecary, so she's good at medicine. And it's basically every episode is a mystery, and a difficult mystery. It's not, and it's moving towards a conclusion of a long mystery thing. It's not like X-Files. I loved X-Files, but X-Files just went all over the place, right? So you never really knew the overarching story that they followed through the entire X-Files, which we watched that over COVID, all of it. Never really made sense. But this is like, it's making sense as it goes along. And so it gives us a lot to talk about. Also, the main character is clearly neurodivergent. So we can talk about that a bit as well, and how she interacts. And one character, I think, has PTSD. So we talk about the characterization a lot. And that's something our family's always done. That's something that kind of pulls you away from the bothersomeness of things that are happening in your life to something conceptual to relate to.
Nice. It's good you've got your son over there. And how do you just Facebook message him while you're watching the show together? Or do you watch it at different times and then you talk to it about it afterwards? Or
it depends on the day. So sometimes, I mean, we literally will put him on the speaker. He's watching it while we're watching it. We'll literally have him on the phone, right? No one's saying anything. With my youngest son, my oldest son and my youngest son are so close. They will literally get on the phone with each other on a Saturday and just go about their day. Like the phone's on and they'll occasionally mention something, but they'll sit in silence for like 35 minutes just because they're together.
My daughters are like that. Yeah. They call each other and they play Yahtzee.
Aww.
On Facebook.
But yeah, I mean, that to me, that's such a gift to me when you have family members who get along. Because growing up with my family, it wasn't necessarily like that. So my kids get along really well. That's such a joy to watch that.
It is. it's good to see them grow up together. Anyway, that's all I have for you for this first section. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Fun.
If you would like to carry on the conversation with Lexy, then she has her own website, lsdelorme.com, and is on Instagram and TikTok. All the links are in the show notes. There were so many conversational jewels, so I thought I'd just pick 3. One was when she was talking about creating spaces where you can be alone. 2 was telling yourself it's okay to write crap and you can massage it later. I like the term massage. And how her family supports and encourages her. I love the idea of a chapter reading night once a week. There was so much more in the chat. I hope you found some gems of your own. Treasure chest update. We have one totally awesome tote bag with a bookmark, a magnet, and a signed copy of The Swell, which has the hook, Finding Love in the Emergency Room, where every heartbeat matters. And we have 2 Season 3 Finding Alara coffee cups. 1 copy of Lexy's book Bright Midnights, which has the hook. In a world where viruses possess and dreams unlock new realms, 17-year-old Emily must navigate danger, love, and her own dark powers to survive. So that's 4 down and 26 to go. This is going to be a long list by the end, so make sure that you get your name in the draw. Next episode, I'm going to continue my conversation with Lexy, but this time we'll be talking about world building. Thank you for listening to the show. I really appreciate the support. If you would like to get in touch with myself or the team at Bushland Castle Productions, then all of the links are in the show notes, or you can check out the website bushlandcastleproductions.com. If you would like to know more about the show, its guests, and receive exclusive content, then consider joining the Shadow Lair. Head on over to ko-fi.com/Finding Alara, where $5 a month will take you behind the scenes. If you enjoyed listening to Finding Alara, have any questions, or just want to share your world with us, then please get in touch. Until next time, keep up the search for your Alara.